Good evening, you fantastic and glorious people of this floating rock that we call Earth. Can we have some fun tonight? I am your host, Noel Olin, aka the Cajun Libertarian. Can we have some fun tonight? I think that we can. And I know that we can because we have a very special guest that's been on this program before. And he knocked it out the park. His name is Ben Weir. And you're going to follow him on Twitter. However, before we get started, please go sign up for whotouchedit.com. It's Who Touched the Thermostat on Twitter, whotouchedit.com. Fantastic human being, great individual, just amazing. Go sign up. Check it out. It's got amazing merch. That being said, yes, I am wearing a Trump got shot in the face and stood up like a boss legend with the dates on it shirt because that was legendary and amazing. Absolutely incredible. Now, what we have to talk about tonight, I mainly want to keep it fun, and I hope that you actually get into the comments and disagree and argue with us so that we can figure out where we want to go. Now, okay, I'm a first-time Trump voter, and the picks are what they seem to be at the moment. We'll see if it continues down that path. If so, a couple of them I'm just hard disagreeing on, which I told everybody in advance before I voted for Trump that no matter what he does, I am going to absolutely criticize horrible decisions. So we'll talk about it. Get into the comments. Let me know what you think. And without further ado, I'm gonna bring on the guest of the hour, Ben Weir.
What's up, bro? How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, man. Yeah, you saw the newest news that just dropped within the last few minutes for the Secretary of Defense pick. Did you see that?
Okay, so I saw it, but I don't know who that
Pete
is.
Hegseth. He's a neocon. He's definitely a war hawk. He's been hawkish, but he has some bright sides to him. Whereas, like, he has at one point, I believe, endorsed Defend the Guard, if I'm remembering correctly. But he also has been that guy where it's like during the last time Trump was in office, he was like telling him he needs to bomb the shit out of Iran. So, like, we don't know what we're getting.
Give us his name again, if you don't mind.
Pete Hegseth, Hegseth.
What I saw was that he was some sort of Fox News correspondent or conversationalist.
Is that
no different than what we're doing now? A podcaster, just on Legacy Media.
Yeah, he was on Fox and Friends. He was one of the hosts on there.
Fox and Friends. Okay.
He is a veteran. He is a veteran. So I mean, there's that. But other than that, like, I would say
I'm a veteran, and I don't
same.
Agree with half.
Same.
I don't agree with half the veterans.
I agree. It's I don't know. It's a very like out of left field pick from me, but I don't know.
What about, have you heard any confirmation on the Marco Rubio?
That's what's weird is that, like, nothing from the Trump campaign, but then you have people like Jeb Bush and who else? Jeb Bush and another politician who is directly connected to all this stuff congratulating Marco Rubio on his appointment. So my assumption is that it's true. And it's been like talked about in New York Times and Israel Times or something like that. But nothing from Trump's campaign directly. And it's weird because I think he was actually just doing like a live talk somewhere. Someone was saying on Twitter, he didn't even mention it. So
yeah, he hasn't mentioned it at all. I mean, none of the Trump campaign has actually mentioned, Marco Rubio at all. And this is one big thing that I have with again, we're talking about X here, Twitter. Only 25% of Americans are on X, y'all. Like, Twitter's not a real place. Come on. To the normies out there, if you catch this podcast, please follow, subscribe, like, share with your friends. It's one of the best sources of information that you're going to get. Twitter's not a real place. It's a hyper zone for people that are hyper political, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure your feed shows you that. Everybody's, but yeah, I'll get the occasional food video or the occasional, you know, nice, heartwarming video of parents and kids and stuff like that. But dominantly, it is hyper political in Twitter.
I mean, it's very obvious that it had a very crazy impact on this election. Like,
you think so?
oh, absolutely. Like, I don't think if X wasn't purchased by Elon, I don't think that Trump would have won, especially in swing states.
Well, there's a very real argument to be had right there. Had Elon not bought X, what kind of culture would we be dealing with online right now? Because Meta, for those of you that don't know, Meta owns Facebook and Instagram, and so that's a major population of the social media footprint, and it's heavily censored. Twitter was as well, and then Elon bought it, turned it to X, and then what's funny is all the left-wing morons think that simply because he opened it up to everyone, all of a sudden it's a right-wing bastion of conservative voices. That's crazy. It's absolutely insane. Now, all he did was level the playing field. And now you see the manifestation of that.
It really was. I think it was a leveler. It kind of made it more, even ground in terms of, because, like, obviously up until that point, everything was just nothing but woke propaganda, especially during COVID. I think everyone needed something that wasn't ultra censored and everything. And Elon Musk brought it. I mean, I still don't really trust the man all the way, but
right.
At least when it comes to this, it seems like he is giving people, for the most part, a platform for free speech, and I can really appreciate that. So,
agreed wholeheartedly. I mean, could not co-sign that more, because the answer to disinformation is more truth. And as long as we, as a country of people gathered together, continue to isolate ourselves into these echo chambers, the less the value of the country contains, or retains, I would say. You have to have open speech platforms in which we can discuss things, transparently, and then give our 2 cents and how we want to do things. I think I wholeheartedly agree with you. Elon buying X, which is wild for them to accuse him of turning it into a right-wing platform when all he did was just not let the left wing dominate. He just said, let it go.
Now they're accusing him of manipulating ballots for the election or something like that. I don't know if you saw that.
But yeah. That's on my list. That's on my list right here. Democrats go full election deniers and then include Elon Musk and Starlink into their conversation. I mean, it's just the hypocrisy is it never ceases to amaze me. Honestly, like, you think they get to a point where, like, look, you can't lie anymore. You can't be any more of a hypocrite than you are right now. And then we get to this point. Right. The full election deniers. What do you think about Yeah, I mean, they totally think that Trump stole the election, despite the landslide victory and obvious American people mandate on what we want to see change in this government, meaning we want it smaller. Eliminate the Department of Education, regulate the ATF, get rid of it completely. You know, all of these things. There's a shift going on culturally in which they're, I won't say that. I would say the new Republican Party is now recognizing pillars of libertarian philosophy and agorist and anarchist and cat philosophy, and they're making it mainstream, which is something that I honestly never thought I'd see in my lifetime. So, with that being said, I ranted there for a bit, but going back to the Democrats are full election deniers, and then the cultural shift that's taken place.
Dude, honestly, the election fraud thing is kind of funny to me because um, I have never really thought there was a free and fair election ever. I think there's always some kind of foul play from both sides. Like it's not even a one sided thing. It just happens all the time. There's some funny games that are played. Um, and like, do I think that there was probably some election fraud this time? Sure, because it probably happens every time.
Every
But
time.
I just think that, in terms of what we're seeing as the results for the electoral college and the popular vote and all of this stuff, not all of that is forged, right? Like it's impossible it's essentially impossible to forge. I'm not saying it is impossible, but like really like to do all of that and have that much of a dominant win, it's probably not that much fraudulent activity, and it definitely did not sway the election. Like even if it wasn't there, Trump probably still would have won. So, I don't know. It's definitely a cultural shift, though. It is weird to see how a couple years ago it was like, the Republicans that were crying election fraud, and now it's the Democrats. Um, I don't think the Democrats have a leg to stand on. Um, but it is kind of funny to see people who are on Trump's side of this saying like, "Oh, there's no way there was any election fraud. It's impossible. This was a perfect and free election." And I've seen that happening too. And I'm like,
where,
"You're full
where,
of it." I've seen
where?
it. Where am I seeing it?
Yeah,
Dude, I swear to
I
God,
ain't
I just
seen
got in
that
an
at all.
argument with Toad like yesterday about it.
Really?
Yeah, I
Okay.
literally was just arguing with Toad on Twitter about it yesterday. He was like,
About there was no. Did he claim there was no election fraud in this election?
well, I said like I said, Trump was installed. That was my words. And he's like, no, he wasn't. Like he beat the cheat.
Mm.
And I was like, you really believe in election integrity now? Now you believe in election integrity now that your
I
guy
don't.
won?
I now to push back on that, I think like etymologically, he beat the cheat is not translation towards it was a free and fair election, right? I
I
think
agree. Yeah, I agree. No, yeah, and he beat the cheat. But I also think that, like I said, it's not like if there wasn't fraudulent activity at some point or in some place that he would have lost. Like it is very obvious from the last two elections that no amount of fraud would have swayed the election the other way. Joe Biden won the last election, Trump won this election. You know what I mean?
and I've always stood by that right there. What you've said, and what I've always said is like arguing. I'm gonna use a nuanced position here in an esoteric situation. Me and my father, who's not a Republican, but a staunch constitutionalist. He voted for the Constitutional Party in 2016, voted for Trump in 20 and 24. I voted for Trump in 2024 for the first time in my life because I wanted to see all the worst people on earth just cry and just get devastated.
Yeah.
And I thought he was the best. You know, we're
I
libertarian.
see the appeal to voting for Trump, like he's made a lot of promises to people who are of our mindset, like um, in terms of like I guess I'm not for banning things, but we talked about banning CBDC, boosting up Bitcoin, freeing Ross, putting a libertarian in the cabinet, um, like shrinking the government, destroying, abolishing the Department of Education, on and on and on. Like these are a lot of things that are libertarian talking points. So for
Right.
libertarians not to look at that and be like, I understand why someone would vote for Trump. And for people to like complain about it and be like, oh, but my principles, like you have to vote
Right. No.
libertarian or what? Like
To
if you
me,
can't see the other side of this, I don't care if Trump broke his promises. He had a horrible team on him last time. He's going to have another horrible team this time. If he actually follows through with one or two of those promises, then that makes our society a little bit more free. Period.
Yeah, and it's the best wins that libertarians could have attained because our chair, Angela McCardle, who will be on the show in 2 days, I've got her
Nice.
coming back on Thursday. It's crazy to me how we can just disregard all of these potential wins. Now, I'm not saying they're all going to happen because politicians are going to politician,
Yeah.
right? But the fact that they have mainstreamed these ideas, these ANCAP libertarian ideas of abolishing the Fed. Bro, dude literally put out a video
Yep.
saying
He
he's
sure
going
did.
to abolish the Department of Education.
Yeah. Saying that he was going to like
That's a
nationalize
win.
conceal carry and all kinds of stuff, dude. He's like dropping bombs that are like, oh my God. Now, there's been some cringy shit coming in those videos too. But like at the same time, for the most part, it does sound like they're trying to reject modernity and embrace tradition and try to reduce the scale of government. And if the size of government goes down by even one employee over the next 4 years, then that is a step in the right direction. I would love to see him just cut and slash and abolish as much as he can. But like I'm telling you, like, even just like one department, if one department gets shut down and thousands of employees that are being fed by the government right now are left jobless, that's a huge win for me. That's a huge win for liberty for me. So I sound arrogant saying that, but
There you go.
I'm sorry, but they're taking our tax dollars they're stealing from us to pay for things that are completely meaningless and have no benefit to society at all.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on. And this is a great comment by Pogue Mahone. Trump made the right deal with the right set of insiders.
Yeah.
This is why Rubio is being floated. Okay, so this is something that I've considered here as of late mentally, and I want to hear I really want to get to like just lighthearted, funny stuff, but the comments and what you're saying is so incredible. Regarding that comment and regarding the idea that Trump made these certain people that are considered insiders part of his cabinet, and that's why they're being floated. Let me ask you this. If there's a percentage that you feel comfortable giving, what would that be in that he cut a deal with the deep state to maintain, to get his office?
Man,
right?
he did
Instead
cut
of
a deal with
being
the deep state. He did though. Like I agree with that. And if you remember last time I was on your show, I was like, I'm pretty sure Kamala Harris is going to win because what I was seeing here in New Hampshire was that Kamala Harris was dominating everywhere. And it turns out, I was right at least about New Hampshire. Like the Democrats,
New Hampshire is still a breeding
No.
ground for freedom.
It is. And the Republicans actually killed it. They took the state house, the state senate with a dominant majority. They got the governor position. So any bill they want to put through, it's going to pass. Now, federally, the federal elections for Congress and then for president, those did not, those went Democrat. But based on what I was seeing, that just makes sense to me. Now, what my thing is here is Trump making the right deal with the right set of insiders. I said last time that if Trump wins, it's because he was installed. And there's a lot of moving factors in that. That means that, sure, there was definitely some deep state insiders involved.
And it doesn't account for the votes.
It doesn't account for any
Like
of the votes. It doesn't account for anything.
Obviously, there was a mandate by the American public to transition back to more.
Well, also Kamala Harris was
conservative
just that bad. Kamala Harris was literally the worst Democratic candidate that I've seen in my entire life.
Easily.
Literally.
Even with the dead Joe Biden.
Yeah, exactly. Like Biden probably swept her under the rug when it comes to mental games, and he could hold full sentences without cackling way longer than she could. But I don't know. Like I do think that there's something there is like, Trump was installed, but I also think that I have said this before. Trump is, in my opinion, he's still, for the most part, outside of his newer developments with what he said recently, based off the last 2 terms, he is more of like a moderate Democrat anyway, and he's surrounding himself with moderate Democrats. You've got Tulsi, you've got RFK, and from what I'm seeing in his cabinet choices so far, he's definitely making some concessions to those insiders. And man, I hate some of those picks, man. They're all like war hawks and neocons. There's some Zionists in there. Big pharma people, like that first lady that he put in there that looks like Paula Deen. She was like tied in with big pharma. I don't know. Like, I'm not satisfied so far. I wasn't expecting to be satisfied, but I'm a little disappointed more than anything. So
same. So I want to get to this comment right here from Doug Mahone. It accounts for the fact that the 2020 machine never kicked in. So what I want to ask is the question. I literally proposed the idea that maybe he got some deals with the deep state. If that's true, or if it's not. And if Trump was involved during the 2024 election, would that not kind of allude to the 2020 was stolen? Or are they just playing games, right? So, like, if they're going to allow him to be the president in 2024, but they...
And in 4 years ago, they said absolutely not. Either that or...
And the whole time he's a fascist Nazi dictator. Like, what happened in 2020?
The last 4 years have got, like, the whole country has gone upside down, right? Like, I mean, COVID really messed things up, but the debt's out of control, inflation's through the roof. And I do think that there's a sense of we needed something that was going to be like the most peaceful option, because I believe that if Kamala had won, that I don't think that Trump supporters would have accepted that. I think that they would have cried, the election was stolen again, and
would you have?
Would I have boogalooed?
No. Would you have believed that?
Would I have believed that it was stolen? Well,
no. Would you have believed that Kamala beat Trump fair and square?
I don't think anybody beats anybody fair and square when it comes to politics.
No, don't backdoor it.
I don't. No, I really don't. Like I said earlier in the show, like I think that every election has fraud, and I think there's a good chance that there was a lot of things that were stolen in the 2020 election. And I think that there's probably a couple states that swung by Trump's favor this time that could have been probably stolen too. So I'm not like I don't accept any presidential results because they're all illegitimate leaders. So um I don't know, man. Like I'm not a normie, so it's so hard for me to answer that question. You know what I
I
mean?
get. Or I said, okay. So this is where we disagree. Not. Let me rephrase that. We don't disagree. The mentality is just different because I can easily just run down that rabbit hole
Yeah.
and mess with them. But I can also have this very in-depth and actually factual intellectual conversation with you, and that you're absolutely right. Okay. Now, there's a lot of people watching this right now. We have 116 live congruent viewers already, and thousands more are going to watch this later. I get it. What you're saying is absolutely correct. People are not going to want to buy it. It is not palatable to them. They would rather believe that they actually have control over their own country, which
Yeah.
they do, but they don't know how.
I see that's
So
where
they're
I would
gonna
disagree too. Is like I don't really think us people have that much control over the country. I think that there's too many robots, man. I really do. Um,
but
it really would
the
take a
reality,
huge cultural like shift. And it would take like a, remember the 5th of November type of movement um to spark something like that. And I don't know. This election just told me that there's a lot more robots than I thought there were. That's what it taught
so
me.
I was somewhat alluding to that in the very mathematical, statistical, and provable fact that the American population has like 4 times the amount of firearms of every military combined.
Yeah.
It may be closer to 10.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm advocating for. I'm just saying that's just the reality,
Yeah.
and that you can only push so much legislation before you get pushback. And I think one thing is that we're winning in the pushback area, in that even if it's the orange man, it's a spoken message that we're tired of the status quo. And I'm not sure how anyone can defeat that argument. I mean, we can get into the nuance of what that administration, that second administration, is going to look like, because the first one was great in areas and terrible in others, and it's probably going to be the same.
Yeah.
But
Like I think that I'm not surprised that Trump won. Like I said, I think that he was probably installed, but I'm a lot less upset that Trump was installed than I would have been if Kamala got it. And I do think that there would have been violence that sparked up as a result. And I don't know where that would have led, but I think that like talking kind of like connecting to the last point is I think that um, you know, whoever they are that are, kind of like puppeteering behind the scenes, I think they knew that.
right.
I think that they knew like if there's two options, the safer option is the one that isn't putting an absolute retard at the presidency. So, I mean, Trump is all like, what you're getting with Trump. With Kamala, I still don't think that she ever stated a single one of her policies for her entire campaign. I don't actually think she said a single issue that she was that she cared about. So,
Well, she would have had to defend her past record of absolute nonsense. So that was never, ever on the table. She had to reverse course and try to come back to the center, and then not explain why she did that. So,
right.
and we all know she's a raging psychopathic progressive
An
that would lock
alcoholic.
you up.
She's who knows what she is, man. She's like watching her sit through a 10-minute speech is like nails on a chalkboard. She literally can barely get through a couple sentences without like repeating herself over and over again. And, you know, her quote about space and her quotes about Russia and Ukraine. Russia is a bigger country and Ukraine is a smaller country. And you know, Russia, the bigger country, invaded the smaller country, and that's wrong because they're the bigger country and they're the smaller country. Like, dude, is that really your concept of foreign policy? Of like bigger countries shouldn't invade smaller countries? That's the point she was making. And she just has quotes like that everywhere. Like she's literally stupid. Like she has a very low IQ. I don't know how she's ever won an election in her life. I have no idea.
Well, I mean, that's
she was
arguable.
In California, so it's like, you know.
And then she, you know, kind of did some things to get her way to the top. Which
I wasn't going to say it, but like you shouldn't put a prostitute against the pimp. The pimp's going to win every time, man. That's why Trump pulled it out. Not literally.
That's funny. Okay, I got that one.
Right.
Yeah. No, you're good. Now, let me ask you, the left, they're literally full scale meltdown.
I'm loving it.
Same.
It's been beautiful to watch all the women shaving their hair and be like, we won't have sex for 4 years. Like, cool, because we don't want you to have sex and procreate.
Right.
I actually made a post on Twitter where I was like, if you are a Democrat or progressive and you're willingly abstaining from sex for the next 4 years, thank you for your service. But if you're a Democrat that still wants to have sex, please message me because I will send you free condoms and I'm giving away 10 free boxes of Plan B. Because I am like, they need to stop procreating. They just do. So, this is just another way to breed them for freedom, man. You know, like they've got
freedom for freedom.
That's how it is.
Yes,
that's how it is, man. They're breeding them for freedom on the right, and on the left, they're shaving their heads and abstaining from sex. So, in the end, what's the result here? The right is going to have more babies, and the future generation is going to look a lot more conservative than liberal. Hopefully.
You know what's crazy to me is that they can't understand it. They don't see it. You know, they completely miss their entire shtick of less human beings. You know, and it's wild to me that we can be, you know, you can be a literal leftist liberal and look at that situation and the things that they're promoting and say, yo, that's crazy. No, I'm going to have a baby. I'm going to get married. We're going to have children. And they just, not only do they reject that idea, but they also denigrate it to the worst degree. They'll tell you, literally, try it out. I know you have. I know you've won. Try it out.
About to. It's due in 2.5 weeks. So,
yeah. Nice. Congratulations. Again, you can go on and say those exact same things, and they will denigrate you and just ostracize you for being pro-human.
Right. It is really crazy. And then, but like, it's honestly, it's a lot of mental gymnastics, man. I mean, you know, if you watch some of the videos of even like Charlie Kirk going out and talking to people about it, like, I think Charlie Kirk is stupid. Like, I don't really like to watch it, and I don't enjoy his content that much. But, you know, like watching him troll college kids, like just like I used to watch Ben Shapiro go out and troll college kids. I have a good time watching that because really, like, it just shows that a lot of these kids So I'm reading this book called Coddling of the American Mind by Jonathan Haidt. And it talks about when it was that in colleges specifically, they started changing their verbiage and their language to start allowing words to be violence. When they started saying that, talking about microaggressions and stuff like that, and how at first, for the first like 5-6 years, the professors didn't see really any difference. But what they found out was 1 year, everything around them was just pussyfooting around microaggressions, and they were they're scared to speak their feelings, and they started treating PTSD that people legitimately might have with not giving them protecting them from the traumas. Whereas historically and scientifically, the only way to treat yourself for PTSD is to introduce yourself to trauma, to make the trauma less harmful and hurtful going forward. But I think it's all tied together, man. Like I really do think that the way that they're socializing people in colleges is really bad, which is why I was kind of stoked to see Trump's stuff he was talking about earlier. Like I said, I'm not an advocate for banning anything, but where he's talking about keeping a closer eye on curriculum stuff. Now, I don't actually think he's going to abolish the Department of Education, but that would be one of the biggest victories for liberty that we have seen in generations, man. Like that is insane. It's insanely awesome. And I really hope that comes to fruition because, man, that would change so many things about what we're seeing in our youth. We would not see 6-year-olds questioning what gender they are, or we wouldn't see a bunch of college kids throwing riots on campus because a professor accidentally called a trans person a boy when they identify as a non-binary ZZM. You know what I mean? So that would be huge, man. I think that would be a huge win.
I mean, obviously, just absolutely denigrating and demolishing the Department of Education is a massive win. Just getting rid of that department is incredible.
Do you think it's actually going to happen?
I don't know. Because the president doesn't have that authority.
Right. It's Congress.
Right.
But I mean, technically, Republicans do own Congress and the Senate right now by a couple seats majority. So
it's going
there was
right,
a time,
right. So,
there was a time to do it. It would be right now. The
it
problem
would
is you
be
have
if those Republican representatives actually had a spine and weren't scared about losing their seats.
Right. Right. Exactly. Because you have a lot of you do have some Republicans in there that are tied in deep with, I mean, obviously not just like there's definitely some Republicans that are tied in with unions and teachers unions and stuff, and that get money from those type of organizations. They don't only support Democrats and Act Blue. So
no, they don't. And unfortunately, they actually work on behalf of the lobbyists.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of money on, quote unquote, public education, which is not a real thing. It's not public, it's government funded, and it's government and funded indoctrination.
I've never heard a bigger oxymoron in my life than government education.
Very valid. What are your thoughts on the absolute meltdown coming from what we call, I'll give credit to Michael Malice here, the awfuls, the affluent white female liberals, How much have you enjoyed that, or do you think it's
It's been great. I've been watching the videos of the meltdowns, and it's funny because um, you know how you can just kind of like look at somebody and kind of just tell where they're at politically sometimes.
right?
You know, every single one of those people are like that. Every single person that's making these like breakdown videos on the internet, you can tell by looking at them. If you passed them on the street, you'd be like, "Oh, that's a freaking Democrat. They're a progressive Democrat, woke leftist." You can just tell. And it's been great to see, man. I mean, like I love watching liberals cry. I'm not gonna lie, I like to see conservatives and Republicans cry sometimes too when they're wrong. So
Of course.
as it should be, right? So we have to
Yeah.
enjoy the tears where they come because we should cyberbully all of these people off the internet and out of influence entirely. So
I absolutely agree. Did you see that panelist on CNN that had a meltdown over the trans issue? Is a white, of course, is a white guy, but
it's always a white guy. A white
all
dudes for
white.
Harris. That's what it was.
And there's a black dude. He's talking about one of the biggest reasons that the Democrats lost was because they're so out of touch. And he's talking about men being in women's spaces.
Hmm.
Did you see that clip?
I might have like I think I know what you're talking about. Like I've seen it come up on my timeline a couple times for on Twitter, but I don't know if I've actually watched the clip. But that is pretty funny.
Oh yeah, you got to watch that clip. It's on CNN. So did you know that MSNBC is up for sale?
I didn't know that until you told me about that. That's pretty interesting.
On
How much do you think Elon should buy MSNBC
um
and
I
just put a
think
bunch of shit casters on there like us?
yes.
That's the way to do it, man. He'll just find the best podcasters on X and just
Or
move them to MSNBC.
or just shut it down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's another
Let
way to
it
do it for
die.
sure. Yeah.
You know, don't buy it, let it die.
It's a waste of money.
But
Yeah.
unfortunately, they're going to be subsidized by other networks and the federal government, so they're probably going to survive.
Mhm.
So my guess, my I guess, yeah, my guess would be that he should buy it and then level the playing field just like he did with Twitter
I
and
mean,
let the
having an
open
actual
voice.
free speech news source would be huge, man. I mean, like there isn't any non-biased news source out there. There isn't. They don't exist. Like we can claim that all of our favorite podcasts that we watch are non-biased too, like Joe Rogan or Tim Gass or whatever they might be. Um, they're definitely biased too. But having one network that features all the different ideas doesn't exist anymore. It hasn't existed since Ronald Reagan. Um, Ronald Reagan put laws into place that essentially eliminated the need for media to present unbiased news. There used to be like a law in place that required them to show both sides of an issue, and he eliminated that. So, and it's been like this. It's been obviously progressively getting worse. And now you look at the corporate media and it's all the same shit all the time. The
Do you think there's coming back from this?
Dude, no. I mean, X is currently ranked the number one news source in multiple countries, and that's not what it's even designed to do. You know what I mean? This is just a free speech platform, but people are literally considering it their news source. And to be fair, I don't think that's like a great thing to do is to just go to X for your news because there's going to be biased stuff on there. Even community notes can be manipulated.
Right.
But it's I guess up to the individual what kind of information they want to consume. Like, if you want to get both sides of an issue, you have to do that digging yourself. You can't just rely on one source on X or on CNN or on Fox, because you're never really going to get the whole truth most of the time. So I don't think that in terms of corporate media, they'll ever come back. I think the closest thing we're going to have coming forward is free speech spaces like X. And like I said, I really don't even think that that's that unbiased. I think that you get a lot of biased news source material on X too. So sorry, I've been ranting a lot. It was a long day.
No. That's what I was asking for. Because we have we have what we have right now coming up on the spectrum with the.
I do love your
with the
shirt, by the
Trump
way.
thing.
I saw
Oh,
you
thank
giving it the flex at the beginning there. Awesome shirt. I am wearing a shirt of the ghost of president-elect or candidates past, representing my boys, Lars Mapstead and Larry Sharp, that's who I was gunning for in DC at the Libertarian Convention, and it just didn't happen. So I had Rechtenwald on my podcast last week. He's seems to be doing well for himself.
I hope he's doing better than the gummy he ate at the convention.
Definitely. He's
Yeah, that was kind of.
He was completely coherent the entire time.
Nice. Yeah. So, what is it in your mind outside of camouflage can we do to restore this country back to a point of individual freedom, the focus on being, free market individual freedom?
There was a clip that Vivek put out there this last week, and I'm actually a huge fan of Vivek. He's got a couple bad takes, great. But he is one of my favorite people to watch right now. And he was talking about how he regularly communicates with Trump, how he wants to instill certain values in this new administration that essentially delegitimizes government and allows people to say, like, hey, this actually wasn't that necessary to begin with, and delegitimize it. So obviously there's that scale on a national level.
I think Ben lost it right there. He must have clicked out. So I will say that I think what he's saying is absolutely correct. Excuse me. I think we're on the correct path, right? We're on the trajectory of winning. You're going to have losses, right? You're just going to. And that includes me. And so what we need to focus on is where we can articulate and manipulate things going on in our area, like with a city council, right? State legislature. These are the things that we need to focus on. I've never been a big advocate of how to change things federally. That's just never been a real option to me. So I would say focus locally and figure out how you can change the atmosphere and the culture of what's going on right there in your neighborhood, as opposed to federally. All right, he's back. Let's add him.
Yo, sorry about that. My
good.
all my power just flashed like in my whole house, so it shut off my computer. So I thought I'd jump on my phone real quick. But yeah, like exactly what you were just saying. That's exactly what I was trying to just get at, was that you have to
localize it as much as possible. You have to decentralize. You have to scale it back to the local level. And for me, my take on this, my influence on this is, you know, I think that there's already a good example of what this looks like. And that would be the Free State of New Hampshire. You have the Free State Project, who is bringing people to New Hampshire to concentrate, similar-minded libertarians, to bring them all together and basically centralize to decentralize. And the thing is that it's working. Like, we're scaling down the government at a massive scale here, and we're eliminating their influence. Where we adopted school choice last year. Last year also our people, essentially nullified federal gun laws, which is huge. Like, anything that they pass on a federal level in terms of gun law, we do not have to adopt here. We can just tell them to kick rocks. And there's going to be so much more cool stuff happening this year. Like, I've already talked to, so many of my friends who are elected to the state house, and so many of the Free Staters. And there's a lot of work to do, obviously, to keep scaling that back. The coolest thing about New Hampshire is that it is the most decentralized government by constitution in the entire country, and it's the second most decentralized in the world, because there's
why you say that?
Representatives per tax citizen here than there is anywhere else. So in New Hampshire, there's 400 state reps. That means one state rep represents just over 2,600 citizens. Whereas in most states, in most places around the country, usually that number is upwards of like 200,000 to sometimes over 500,000 people. It's crazy. But when you're talking about electing state reps here, you're literally electing your neighbor, and it's literally someone you can go and we have here in New Hampshire, the Free State Project, they have over 120 liberty.
Okay, we keep losing him, so it's going to be okay. We'll
you can see me?
Bring him back in.
Can you see me now?
Yeah.